សូមជម្រាបសួរទស្សនិកជនទាំងអស់បាទខ្ញុំបាទហិនសុភាពថ្ងៃនេះសូមនាំជូនលោកអ្នកនៅកិច្ចសម្ភាសន៍មួយជាមួយនឹងលោក Andrew Silberman ដែលជាភ្ញៀវជាប្រចាំរបស់យើងនៅទីក្រុងតូក្យូប្រទេសជប៉ុនបាទហើយថ្ងៃនេះដែរយើងសូមនាំយកនៅប្រធានបទមួយជជែកអំពីការធ្វើឲ្យមានឥទ្ធិពលនៅក្នុងការប្រជុំពិភាក្សាពីចម្ងាយព្រោះថាដោយសារតែបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះបាទយើងស្ថិតនៅក្នុងសម័យមួយដែលជាសម័យ COVID-19 បាទហើយយើងត្រូវការធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីឲ្យមានប្រសិទ្ធភាពបំផុតសម្រាប់ការប្រជុំរបស់យើងពីព្រោះថាយើងត្រូវប្រជុំជួបប្រជុំជជែកពិភាក្សាពីចម្ងាយបាទដូចជាករណីដែលខ្ញុំបានធ្វើជាមួយនឹងលោក Andrew នៅថ្ងៃនេះពីទីក្រុងតូក្យូហើយនិងទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញបាទអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំសូមណែនាំលោកអ្នកជូនលោក Andrew Silberman បាទលោក Andrew Silberman គឺជាអគ្គនាយកនៃក្រុមហ៊ុនប្រឹក្សាយោបល់ AMT Group នៅប្រទេសជប៉ុនបាទលោកបានមករស់នៅប្រទេសជប៉ុនជាង25ឆ្នាំកន្លងមកហើយបាទហើយលោកបានផ្ដល់ប្រឹក្សាយោបល់ដល់ក្រុមហ៊ុនជប៉ុននិងក្រុមហ៊ុនពហុជាតិសាសន៍នៅក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ីនិងប៉ាស៊ីហ្វិកនេះហើយលោកក៏ធ្លាប់បានអញ្ជើញមកប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងដើម្បីបង្រៀនដល់អ្នកវិជ្ជាជីវៈជំនាញពីប្រហែលឆ្នាំមុននេះផងដែរមុនពេល COVID មកដល់បាទអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំសូមនាំលោកអ្នកជួបជាមួយនឹងលោក Andrew តែម្ដង Okay, on the next one, you know, recently before we start and then you mentioned about the action. And you know, one of my colleagues always get everything ready and then we start action. And so what is it all about in the remote meetings, Andrew?
Yeah. So here's what it is. And we did a little bit of an example of that. So we have a warm up, we have a preparation, we're talking, you're setting up the lighting, you want to make sure things are good. And then it is time for action. And action means, look, this is a video world, right? These remote meetings are very similar to if you watch a TV drama or a movie at home looking at a screen. And we need to have the idea of taking real action, really energizing. So we need to send even more energy into the screen, into our colleagues. We need to, in our voice, we cannot get into the whole boring, dull language. We don't want to be talking like this about the next meeting agenda. I want to make sure everyone has prepared. And now let's take a look at the following graph. Can everybody see? Oh, it's too small. I guess. No, that's just horrible. We need to think in terms of action as if you were truly acting, right? Acting. And remember, you are truly on camera. There was a terrible story I reported in the book. Maybe you saw it too, where there was a Spanish newscaster he was on his Zoom call, and all of a sudden his girlfriend goes behind him on the camera. It's like, no, guys, you're on camera now. This is action. This is ready, action. So that's what I mean by that. It's a production. And some of us are very lucky. We have assistants who can set up the thing. I just learned with one of our major clients, a consulting client, they said, hey, for any session that you have, if in terms of AMT group, when we're doing training, more than 15 people, we always have what's called a producer. And the producer is someone who's just behind the scenes, checking all the participants. They're doing the work with the platform, with Zoom, checking all that stuff. And they actually have the word now, producer. It's a role for people, just like we would have when we were in Cambodia and we'd have meetings. There's like somebody responsible for the food or responsible for handing out papers, whatever it is. You have somebody behind the scenes producing. They're monitoring the chat. They will see if questions are coming in the chat. That's for someone else to do. So it's about having different roles, imagining this remote world, these remote meetings is not only everybody, here's your login, please jump in and let's go. No, we need to think it through more like a production, like a true movie that has when I say action, that's the same as when the director of the movie says, ready, action.
Yeah, very good. Actually, you know, we try to make sure that everything is complete, proper, and really, I mean, everyone is well prepared once we hit the button. And the button here is my team just click to make sure that we are live, we are recording now. So
Yes.
we got into action. And another point that you talk about camera on and camera off recently as well. So
Yes.
so how is it work? And can you give a bit more? How we can arrange
Sure.
it to run it on the camera on
Yes.
and off.
Off. So that's a decision that each organization, each team needs to make. Like I feel the same way about remote meetings that are half remote is not a good idea to have some people together and some people remote. Same with the camera. If you have 8 people in a meeting, but 6 of them have cameras on, but 2 of them is camera off, I don't like that. That's a personal preference. Some companies would have their own way of doing things. My recommendation is that we either have all the cameras on or all the cameras off. And I also, as I mentioned before, recommend break time where we usually have the cameras on, but we can also have the cameras off for break time, because that lets you rest and lets you refresh. But in general, I want the cameras on if at all possible, because that way we can get at least the visual input and we can see people who are speaking. That's just better than only audio, unless everyone is on audio, because that way we're all doing basically the same thing. Is what I mean. Like we are all in the same situation. And that's why I prefer, if people are remote or not remote, if 1 or 2 people need to be remote, I say better to have everyone remote. Even if you're going back to the office, just go onto a laptop then and look into the camera, because we should I feel it's better if people are in a similar situation. And like I said, camera on, generally better, because we can see that people are truly there. The worst thing is cameras off and then you say, hey, Joe, what did you think about this? And then Joe doesn't even respond because Joe is not really there. That's again something we didn't mention before, but how to make an impact, not just as the speaker, but as listeners. Often there's a good time to just say, you can use the buttons for like raising your hand, but you can also have people say, hey, raise your hand if, or put up a 1 if you prefer this, or 2. So you get people involved. They get people active in the meeting by doing those things. So again, final recommendation is cameras generally on for me, and then take breaks where it's completely off at other times.
Yeah, Andrew, actually, talking about camera on or off, and even mute or unmute, during many meetings that I attend through remote, even when I engage in consulting, I saw people, sometimes they put the mute that, you cannot hear them. And sometimes people just, or the student, they just put the, the camera off. It means that they don't show their video, so we cannot see whether they are there or not. So how do you match that? And is it really impactful on the meeting or the conference?
I think it's very impactful. And I followed the guidelines. At first, I tend to be very flexible person and very open. And okay, people want this, they want that, do what you want. Then I was teaching in a program at Hitotsubashi University here in Japan. And they had a very strict policy. Everyone's camera must be on, except when we have breaks where camera is off. And it made all the difference, because now everyone is expected to be on camera and be communicating, showing if they agree or disagree. Even chatting is fine. They don't mind if people chat about even with each other sometimes. Hey, Joe, I see you're doing this. Hey, Mary, blah, blah, blah. Takashi, they're engaged. We need engagement. So that's the big difficulty of remote work, is people feel disengaged. Remote, right? On an island, they're remote, they're far away. How do you bring people in? Well, partially you see them, physically see them. And in some ways it can be even better, because you can see even more of their real life that's going on. At the same time, we need to keep the flow of the meeting. And like I said, if students, again, it's easy for students. If you're the professor, you say cameras on or you don't pass the class. So it's quite easy. For professionals, maybe they have a reason. So then please give us the reason why you don't want your camera on. But nowadays you have virtual background. So if you're worried about people coming in behind, you can use the virtual background. That's open for you. There's so many options, but remember the whole idea, and I probably could have said this from the start, we could say it at the end as well, but the whole idea of making a positive impact in remote meetings is how do you remove some of the remote feeling, right? We're trying to bring ourselves closer, and turning your camera off in the middle of a meeting is saying, well, I'm not really paying attention, or it's like standing outside the door but listening. That's not as good. So I highly recommend to go with the cameras on policy and then give people breaks.
Yeah, so very good point, Andrew, on this, and I really got to learn all this as well. You know, one point before I forgot to ask you, on the size of the meeting, in the remote meetings, you know, even during the meetings of, physical meeting, we even try to limit the number of people so that we can focus and we can make sure the meeting is really effective. But,
yes,
you know, during remote meeting, and you look and you can see people only in the screen. So, and once you have many people on the screen, you know, it tends to be very small, you know.
yes.
Some people use the phone, when it's smaller.
Yeah, it's impossible.
If I use my computer, I may be able to see the screen. Or when I use the big TV screen, I can see people more larger, and I feel, you know, like a face-to-face. And in the meeting, we tend to make sure that we have attachment between each other in terms of emotion and also kind of cognitive understanding with each other as well. So what is the size of the meeting? We should have to make sure our meeting is run effectively.
Yeah. So you're asking about the size, ideal size, right? And I would think the ideal size depends on the purpose of the meeting. If it's just to get information out, I suppose you could have hundreds of people. But if you want real interaction, so it's not a webinar, but it's a real meeting with people participating, my maximum comfort is if I have a big screen, very big screen, then 25 means 5 by 5. That's all on one screen I can see. Once it's more than 25 in Zoom, you have to change the screen anyway. You're not going to see more people. If you're on a phone, I mean, probably the maximum should be one person, because 2 people, because you really cannot see the facial gestures or expressions. So if it is for a group meeting, so we're discussing, then that's my max, is I feel about 25. And I would rather have it more like a dozen. And the one thing, even at 25, and here's something you can do for any of your meetings. If you have a discussion, you have that main topic, you have a bit of a discussion, or you're putting out the topic you want people to discuss, then use that breakout function. Create teams where people can meet as a group of 4 or 5, and you can jump in to see how they're doing, but also you say, okay, you 4 or 5, discuss this. What are your questions you still have for me as the leader? Or what did you decide as a groups? And then have somebody report back in the full meeting. That's a beauty of Zoom that you can do that's difficult in a real meeting, right? We did so much training in Cambodia, and we would maybe have 5 or 6 tables of 5 people in each table. And when they're talking, okay, there's a lot of noise because you hear the other tables. In Zoom, you can put people into those rooms. It's very private. It's just them. They can talk. They can ask. They're very close. They see only 3 or 4 pictures. They feel close with those people. Then, okay, let's go back to the big meeting room, big space, and we can talk a bit more there. So it's a skill. Again, this is a new skill of managing these kind of meetings. I'm sure for different people, different organizations, they might have a different ideal size. I just know for me, I would rather have, if it's an ongoing discussion, I don't want more than say 6 or 8 people. If it's a big class in business schools, I want it to be about 20, 25. If it gets more than that, I just feel like it should be a webinar then. It should be just mostly one way and much shorter time.